The treaty document was 300 pages long, and Daniel Webb had read every single word twice. What he had not read anywhere was the phrase bride offering. Yet here he stood in the great stone hall of Clan Vorn, surrounded by 7-foot-tall Drachmarie warriors with scaled skin and ridged spines, watching an elder push a female toward him like she was livestock at an auction. "We gift you Rasha of Clan Vorn," the elder announced. "She will serve as bond between Human Federation and Drachmarie people. She is yours now." Daniel looked at the female. She stood with perfect stillness, her golden eyes fixed on some point above his head. Her scales were deep red, almost black in places. Scars crossed her arms. She was a warrior, obviously, and she was furious. He could see it in the tight set of her jaw, the way her clawed hands stayed rigid at her sides. "I appreciate the gesture," Daniel said carefully, "but I came here to sign a trade agreement, not to receive a person as a gift." The elder's face showed confusion. "You refuse her?" "I did not ask for her. I do not want to own anyone." Now Rasha's eyes moved to him. Something flickered there. Confusion, maybe, or suspicion. The elder stepped closer, lowering his voice. "She is disgraced. Cast out. This is her only remaining purpose. If you refuse, she has nothing. She becomes nothing. You would condemn her to that." Daniel looked at Rasha again. She had not moved, but he saw her hands trembling now. Not from fear, from shame. He understood suddenly what was happening. This was not a gift. This was a punishment. Someone had decided that being given to a weak human was the worst fate they could design for her, and his refusal would make it even worse. "Fine," he said quietly. "I accept." The walk back to his ship took 20 minutes. Rasha followed 3 steps behind him, silent. 2 Drachmarie guards escorted them, making sure the transfer was complete. When they reached the ship's boarding ramp, the guard stopped. "She is your problem now, human," one said. "May she bring you less trouble than she brought us." Daniel said nothing. He walked up the ramp and heard Rasha's footsteps following. Inside the ship, he turned to face her. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, chin raised, eyes forward. A soldier's posture. A prisoner's posture. "Okay," Daniel said. "Let me be clear about something. I did not know what you were told about humans or about me. But I'm not going to treat you as property. I'm not going to treat you as a wife. I do not want either of those things." Rasha said nothing. "There is a spare cabin down the hall. It is yours. Private. Locked from the inside. I will not enter without your permission. We have a 3-week journey to the next Federation outpost. After that, we can figure out what happens next. Maybe there is somewhere you want to go. Someone who will take you in." Still nothing. "Do you understand what I am saying?" Finally, she spoke. Her voice was low and rough, like stones grinding together. "You do not want me. I do not want to own anyone. There is a difference. Then why did you accept?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Because refusing would have hurt you more. And you have been hurt enough today." I could see that. Something shifted in her expression. Not softening exactly. More like recalculation. She was trying to fit him into a category, and he was not fitting. "I am a warrior," she said. "Trained since birth. I have killed many enemies of my clan. I do not need your protection or your pity. I'm not offering either. I am offering you a room with a lock on the door and 3 weeks to figure out your next move. That is all." Rasha studied him for a long moment. Then she walked past him toward the hallway. At the door to the spare cabin, she paused. "What was your name again, human?" "Daniel. Daniel Webb. Daniel Webb." She tested the sounds. "You are strange. I get that a lot." She disappeared into the cabin. The door closed. He heard the lock engage. Daniel let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. He walked to the cockpit and began the launch sequence. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. 3 weeks. 3 weeks with a disgraced alien warrior who probably wanted to kill him, or at least resented his existence. Wonderful. That night, after the ship was safely in transit, Daniel sat alone in the small common area with a tablet, reviewing what little information existed about Drachmarie culture. He found entries on their warrior traditions, their honor codes, their clan structures, and then he found a reference to blade healers. Drachmarie who trained not just to fight, but to repair the damage of battle. They were considered sacred, untouchable in combat. honored above even the greatest warriors. Interesting that a sound made him look up. Rasha stood in the doorway, watching him. "You were a soldier," she said. It was not a question. "How did you know?" "The way you move. The way you check the corners when we walk through the hall. The scars on your hands." She paused. "What kind of soldier?" "Combat médic. I healed people on battlefields." Something changed in her face. The suspicion was still there, but underneath it now was something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. "A blade healer," she said softly. "I do not know what that means." "No," she said. "You would not." She turned and walked back to her cabin without another word. But this time, Daniel noticed she did not lock the door. Rasha had counted 17 different ways to kill the human in the first 3 days. She could use the kitchen implements. She could break his neck while he slept. She could simply tear out his throat with her claws. He was soft, slow, and weak. It would take less than 4 seconds. She did none of these things. Not because she feared punishment. What could anyone do to her now that was worse than what had already been done? Not because she felt gratitude. She felt nothing so simple as that. She did not kill him because he confused her. And Rasha hated being confused. The human kept his word. He did not enter her cabin. He did not demand anything from her. He cooked meals and left portions outside her door without comment. When they passed in the narrow hallway, he nodded politely and kept moving. He asked nothing about her past, her disgrace, her crimes. That on the 5th day, she began eating meals in the common area instead of her cabin. Daniel sat at one end of the small table. She sat at the other. Neither spoke. On the 8th day, she found herself watching him work. He spent hours at a medical station in the cargo hold, organizing supplies, checking equipment, running diagnostics. His movements were precise and practiced. A healer's movements. Sacred movements. In her culture, "You are not always a diplomat," she said. He did not look up from his work. "No." "What happened?" Now he paused. His hands went still over the medical scanner he was cleaning. "I lost people. People I was supposed to save. After that, I cannot do it anymore." "You fled from battle." "I removed myself from a situation where I was no longer effective." He met her eyes. "There is a difference." The same words she would have used. Rasha felt that strange recognition again. That night, she woke to the sound of screaming. She moved through the ship on silent feet, claws ready, expecting intruders. Instead, she found Daniel in his cabin, tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, crying out names she did not recognize. "Porteur, hold on. Hold on, I am coming. I can stop the bleeding, just hold on." He was asleep, fighting battles that existed only in his memory. Rasha stood in the doorway and watched. She knew these dreams. Every warrior knew them. The faces of the dead, coming back to demand answers. Why them and not you? Why did you survive when they did not? His shirt had ridden up during his thrashing. She saw the scars then. Burns across his ribs. Shrapnel marks on his stomach. A long surgical line from a wound that must have nearly killed him. This was not a soft man. This was not a weak man. This was a man who had walked through fire and somehow kept walking. He woke suddenly, gasping. His eyes found her in the doorway. For a moment, neither moved. "Sorry," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Did I wake you?" "You were loud. It happens sometimes. Old dreams." He sat up, pulling his shirt down. "You can go back to sleep." Rasha did not move. "How many did you lose?" He was quiet for a long time. 12. All at once. Enemy strike hit our position. I was the only medic. I could not save any of them. Then it was not your failure. It was impossible. That does not make the dream stop." "No." She knew that it did not. "I lost 23, she said. "Civilians. Refugees from a border village. My clan wanted to burn them because enemy wounded were hiding among them. I refused. I evacuated the village instead." Daniel looked at her with something that was not pity. Understanding, maybe. "They punished you for saving lives. They punished me for disobeying orders. The lives did not matter to them. They matter to you." Rasha turned and walked away without answering. Some truths did not need to be spoken. 3 days later, the pirates came. The attack was sudden and brutal. For ships surrounded them, blocking escape. A boarding party cut through the hull before Daniel could even reach the weapons locker. They came through the breach with blades and guns, shouting in a language Rasha did not know. But she knew what they wanted. The ship, the cargo, anything valuable. Including her point when the pirates grabbed her arm. She broke his wrist and was reaching for his throat when she heard Daniel shout. He had positioned himself in front of 2 crew members who had frozen in terror. 3 pirates advanced on him. He had no weapon, no armor, no chance, and still he stood there. One pirate lunged. Daniel shoved the crew members back, putting himself directly in the blade's path. The metal went into his side, and he fell. Something inside Rasha went cold and clear. She took the blade from the pirate who had cut Daniel. Then she took his head. She moved through the remaining attackers like a storm through dry grass. 6 dead in less than a minute. The rest fled back to their ships. When it was over, she knelt beside Daniel. He was conscious, one hand pressed to his wound, blood seeping between his fingers. "You are an idiot," she said. "Probably." He grimaced. "Are the crew safe? You positioned yourself in front of them. You took a blade meant for others. You have no combat training, no armor, nothing. Why would you do that?" "Because they mattered." He closed his eyes. "Everyone matters." Rasha pressed her hands over his wound, using techniques she had learned from watching him these past days. The bleeding slowed. "You will live," she said. "And when you heal, we will talk about why you thought standing in front of me was a reasonable decision. Seemed like the thing to do." "You are an idiot," she said again. But this time, it sounded almost like respect. The medical bay was small, barely large enough for one person to work. Rasha had to crouch to fit inside, her scaled shoulders brushing the walls as she cleaned the wound in Daniel's side. Her claws, designed for killing, moved with surprising gentleness. "You should let the AudioBook handle this," Daniel said through gritted teeth. "The AudioBook is damaged from the attack. Besides, I watched you work. I know what to do." The wound was deep but clean. The blade had missed anything vital by less than an inch. Luck or fate, Rasha was not sure which. "Hold still," she said, applying the sealing gel. "This will hurt." It did. Daniel's whole body went rigid, and a sound escaped his throat that he clearly tried to suppress. But he did not cry out. He did not beg her to stop. He simply endured. When it was over, she wrapped the wound in clean bandages and sat back on her heels. Her hands were covered in his blood, red like hers. Strange how similar they were on the inside. "You will need to rest for several days," she said. "No sudden movements. No stran. Thank you. Do not thank me. You put yourself in this position through stupidity." Daniel laughed, then winced. "Fair point." Rasha did not move. She stayed there, crouched beside him, her bloody hands resting on her knees. The question that had been burning in her since the attack finally escaped. "Why did you stand in front of me?" "What do you mean?" "During the attack. When the pirates came, you positioned yourself between me and them. You took a blade while protecting crew members. But earlier, when they first boarded, you pushed me behind you. You tried to shield me." "Why?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Because you matter. I am Drakmari. I was trained for combat since I could walk. You were human. You had no weapon, no training, no chance. I was in no danger from those pirates. You were. Maybe. But in that moment, I did not think about odds or training. I just knew that someone was threatening you, and I was not going to stand by and watch." Rasha shook her head. "You were explaining, but you were not answering. Why do I matter to you? I am nothing. Less than nothing. A disgraced warrior given away like unwanted property. I have brought you nothing but trouble since we met. Is that what you think?" "That is what I know." Daniel pushed himself up on one elbow, ignoring the pain in his side. "Rasha, listen to me. You saved lives. You disobeyed evil orders because you knew they were evil. You protected civilians who had no one else to protect them. In my culture, that makes you a hero. Your culture is soft. Maybe, but we are also right." He lay back down, exhausted from the small movement. "You matter because every person matters. And because I have seen who you really are. Not the disgrace your clan invented. The real you. The one who saves people even when it costs everything." Rasha stared at him. She had no response to this. No framework for understanding a person who saw her the way he did. There's a concept in my culture, she said finally. When one warrior saves another's life, a debt is created. It is called blood owed. The saved warrior must protect the one who saved them until the debt is repaid. I did not save your life. You saved mine. You stood in front of me. You took steel that could have been meant for me. The intent matters more than the outcome. She paused. I owe you blood debt, Daniel Webb. My life for yours until the balance is equal. Daniel shook his head. I do not want that. I do not want you bound to me by obligation. It is not about what you want. It is about what is right. Rasha's golden eyes were steady. You try to protect me. Me, the disgraced one. The nothing. The property. No one has ever done that. Not my clan. Not my family. No one. Rasha, you are strange and soft and you make no sense to me. But you have honor. Real honor. Not the empty word my people use. And I will not leave that debt unpaid. Daniel was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded. If this is important to you, I will accept. But I have one condition. Name it. Stop calling yourself nothing. You are not nothing. You never were. Rasha felt something shift in her chest. Something that had been cold and hard for many cycles. Something she had thought was dead forever. It was not dead. It was just waiting. I will consider your condition, she said. That is all I ask. She stood, moving toward the door. At the threshold, she stopped. When you are healed, she said, I am going to train you. Train me. You are soft and slow, and you have no idea how to fight. This is unacceptable. If you're going to throw yourself in front of danger to protect people, you should at least have some chance of surviving. Daniel laughed again, and again paid for it with a grimace of pain. You want to teach me to fight? I want to teach you to live. She looked back at him. You protected me like a warrior. Now I will make you into one. Not a husband, not a master, a blade brother. Do you understand what I am offering? I'm not sure I do. You will. She allowed herself the smallest smile. Rest now, Daniel Webb. Your training begins soon, and I am not a gentle teacher. She left him there, still bleeding, still confused, still impossibly alive when he should be dead. And for the first time since her exile, Rasha felt something that might have been hope. Rasha threw him into the wall for the 14th time that morning. Daniel hit the cargo bay floor, rolled, and got back up. His ribs ached. His arms were covered in bruises. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest. Again, Rasha said that he attacked. She moved like water around stone, caught his arm, and sent him flying. 15th time. Your balance is wrong. You lean too far forward when you strike. It makes you easy to redirect. She crossed her arms. Again. 3 weeks of this. 3 weeks of being thrown, pinned, choked, and beaten. 3 weeks of learning exactly how outmatched he was against a Drachmary warrior, and 3 weeks of getting slightly better. Daniel found his feet once more. His wound had healed enough for movement, though Rasha had forbidden any training for the first 5 days. When they finally began, she had started by simply standing still and letting him attack her however he wanted. He had not landed a single blow in 2 hours. You will never match Drachmary's strength, she had told him afterward. Never. It is impossible. So we must find other advantages. Speed, she taught him. Misdirection. The art of making your opponent think you are somewhere you are not. And most importantly, anatomy. You know bodies, she said during one session. You know where they break, where they bleed, where they fail. Use that knowledge. A healer who fights is more dangerous than a warrior who heals. So he learned. He learned which joints bend the wrong way. He learned which pressure points cause paralysis. He learned which strikes could kill and which would only disable. And slowly, session by session, he began to last longer against her. Better, Rasha said after he managed to stay upright for 30 seconds. You are actually learning. I had a good teacher. She made a dismissive sound, but he caught the faint smile before she turned away. Their relationship had changed since the pirate attack. The silence between them was no longer hostile. When they sat for meals, they talked. Small things at first. Favorite foods. Childhood memories. The differences between human and Drachmary culture. Then bigger things. Tell me about your disgrace, Daniel said one evening. The real story. All of it. Rasha was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was flat, controlled, the way it got when she was suppressing something painful. There was a border village. Small, maybe 200 people. During the war with Clan Zeth, the village became a refuge point for their wounded soldiers. Our war council decided the village must be destroyed. All of it. Every building. Every person. Including the civilians. The council said there were no civilians. Only enemy supporters. Her jaw tightened. They were wrong. I had scouted the village myself. There were children there, Daniel. Families. Old ones who could not even walk. They were not soldiers. They were just people trying to survive. So you disobeyed. I evacuated the village. I led the civilians through the mountain pass to neutral territory. 183 lives saved. And for that, they punished you. For that, they stripped my blade name. They declared me honorless. They gave me to you as the final insult. The greatest warrior of Clan Vorn, reduced to a human's property. She met his eyes. That was supposed to break me. Did it? I thought it would. When I first stood in that hall and they pushed me toward you, I wanted to die. I thought there was nothing left. She paused. I was wrong. Daniel leaned forward. What changed? You did. She shook her head slowly. You looked at me and saw a person. Not property. Not a disgrace. A person. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand what it meant to someone who had been told she was nothing? Rasha, you gave me a room with a lock. You asked nothing from me. You stood in front of me when danger came. You bled for me. Her voice cracked slightly. No one has ever done those things. Not my clan. Not my blood family. Only you. Daniel reached across the table and, very carefully, took her clawed hand in his. She could have killed him in that moment. Instead, she let his fingers wrap around hers. I am starting to understand something, she said quietly. About honor. About what it really means. My clan talked about honor constantly. Every decision was about honor. But when the moment came, they chose murder over mercy and called it honorable. She squeezed his hand. You never talk about honor. But everything you do is honorable. Why is that? Maybe because where I come from, we believe honor is what you do, not what you say. Blade brother. She said the word like she was testing it. That is what I offered you. Do you know what it means? Tell me. It means we are bound. Not by blood or marriage or ownership. By choice. By trust. It is the highest bond a drachmary can form. She looked at their joined hands. It means I would die for you. And I would trust you to die for me. I already tried, Daniel said. I just did a bad job of it. Rasha laughed. A real laugh, the first he had ever heard from her. It was rough and strange and beautiful. Tomorrow, she said, we receive a message. The war summit on my homeworld. My former clan will be there. You are required to attend as a Federation representative. And you, I must face them. Her expression hardened. I must face what they made me. Daniel squeezed her hand. You will not face them alone. I know. She met his eyes. That is what scares me most. The Great Hall of Clan Vorn had not changed since Rasha last stood in it. The same black stone walls. The same fire pits burning low. The same warriors standing in rigid rows, their scales gleaming in the dim light. But everything had changed for her. She walked 3 steps behind Daniel, as protocol demanded. The disgraced one, following her human owner to a gathering of the people who had destroyed her. Every eye in the hall tracked her movement. Every face showed the same expression: disgust, contempt, and satisfaction. She was supposed to be broken by now. She was supposed to be crawling. Instead, she walked with her spine straight and her eyes forward, and that confused them. Good. Let them be confused. The summit was political theater. Clan leaders from across Drachmary space had gathered to discuss trade agreements, border disputes, and alliance negotiations. The Human Federation had sent Daniel as their representative. A clever insult, really. Send the man who owned their greatest shame. Remind everyone of her fall. For the first 2 hours, the business proceeded normally. Daniel spoke when required, asking careful questions, taking notes on his tablet. He was good at this, Rasha realized. Patient and observant, watching the power dynamics, identifying who mattered and who did not. She stood behind him and said nothing. Protocol demanded her silence. But she watched everything, and she waited. The confrontation came during the evening meal, Commander Grath of Clan Vorn approached their table. He was large even by Drachmary standards, his scales battle-scarred, his movements aggressive. He had been Rasha's commanding officer. He had been the one to order the village destroyed. He had been the one to declare her honorless. Human. He ignored Rasha entirely, addressing only Daniel. I see you brought our gift with you. Is she performing adequately? Daniel set down his utensil. I am not sure I understand the question. The female. Is she obedient? Does she serve you well? Grath's smile was cruel. We trained her for combat, but I imagine she has other uses now. Several warriors nearby laughed. Rasha felt her claws dig into her palms. Her name is Rasha, Daniel said quietly. She has no name. She has no honor. She's property now. Your property. Grath leaned closer. Although I'm surprised you brought her here. Most owners keep their pets on a shorter leash. More laughter. Louder now. The entire hall was watching. Daniel stood. He was shorter than every Drachmary in the room. Weaker. Softer. He should have been terrified. His voice carried across the sudden silence. Commander Grath, I invoke the right of challenge. The laughter stopped. Every warrior in the hall went still. Grath's expression shifted from amusement to disbelief. What did you say? The right of challenge. Single combat. You have insulted a member of my household. By your own traditions, I am permitted to demand satisfaction. Rasha felt her heart stop. No, he could not be this stupid. Grath began to laugh again, but there was uncertainty in it now. You are joking. A human challenging a Drachmary warrior? Do I appear to be joking? You will die. Then I will die. But the challenge stands. By your own laws, you cannot refuse without being declared a coward. Daniel's voice did not waver. Unless you are afraid to fight a soft, weak human. The hall erupted. Warriors shouted, some in disbelief, some in outrage. The clan elders huddled together, speaking rapidly. This was unprecedented, insane, impossible, and completely legal. Grath's face twisted with fury. Very well, human. I accept your challenge. Tomorrow at dawn. Blades only. To the death or submission. Agreed. Grath stormed away. The hall slowly returned to its normal noise level, but every conversation was about the same thing. The human who had challenged a Drachmary. The fool who would die in the morning. Rasha grabbed Daniel's arm and pulled him into a side corridor. Her grip was hard enough to bruise. What have you done? What needed to be done? He will kill you. You have no chance against him. All your training, everything I taught you, it will not be enough. Maybe not. Then what? She was shaking now. Why would you throw your life away for my honor? I'm nothing, Daniel. Nothing. They made sure of that. Daniel took her face in his hands. A gesture that would have gotten any other human killed. She let him. You are not nothing, he said. You never were. You saved lives while they burned them. You showed mercy when they demanded murder. Someone should have stood for you a long time ago. I am here now, and I am standing. You will die. Then I will die for something that matters. He released her face. But I do not plan to die. I plan to win. How? Because I have something Grath does not have. I have you. He met her eyes. You know him. You train under him. You know his weaknesses, his injuries, his patterns. And you have all night to teach me everything. Rasha stared at him. This mad, impossible human who had looked at her disgrace and seen honor, who had taken a blade for her, who was now willing to die for her. His left shoulder, she said slowly, an old injury. It locks up under stress. And his right knee was damaged in a duel 6 cycles ago. It never healed properly. Tell me more. His pattern is aggressive opening, then defensive waiting. He tries to overwhelm with the first strikes. If you survive those, he becomes predictable. Daniel nodded. What else? They talked until dawn, sitting in that corridor while the rest of the clan slept. Rasha told him everything she knew. Every weakness, every flaw, every chance, no matter how small. And when the first light appeared, they walked to the arena together, Blade brother and Blade sister, ready to face the fire. The arena floor was made of black volcanic glass, polished smooth by centuries of spilled blood. Daniel stood on one side, a borrowed Drachmary blade heavy in his hands. Commander Grath stood on the other, his own blade an extension of his massive arm. The entire clan had gathered to watch. Every warrior, every elder, every servant. They had come to see a human die. Rasha stood at the edge of the arena, her hands clenched at her sides. She had given Daniel everything she knew. Every technique, every weakness, every prayer she had never spoken aloud. Now all she could do was watch. The elder's voice rang out. The challenge has been accepted. Combat begins on my signal. To the death or submission. May honor guide the worthy. Grath smiled. Any last words, human? Daniel adjusted his grip on the blade. Just one. Thank you. For what? For being exactly what I expected you to be. The signal came. Grath exploded forward. The first strike would have taken Daniel's head if he had been standing still. But he was already moving, sliding left, letting the blade pass through empty air. Grath recovered and struck again. And again. And again. Daniel blocked nothing. He dodged everything. His feet moved in patterns Rasha had drilled into him through endless repetition. Stay small. Stay mobile. Make him chase you. Grath's first assault was a storm of violence. Any normal opponent would have been overwhelmed in seconds. Daniel survived by not being where the blades fell. He gave ground constantly, circling, weaving, refusing to engage. The crowd grew restless. Where's the blood? Where was the killing blow? Stand and fight, coward! Grath roared. Daniel said nothing. He kept moving, and he watched there, the left shoulder, just as Rasha had said. After the fourth heavy swing, Grath's arm dropped slightly. The old injury was flaring up. Daniel changed his pattern. He began moving right instead of left, forcing Grath to swing across his body. Each crossbody strike put more strain on the damaged shoulder. Each swing was slightly slower than the last. Grath realized what was happening and tried to adjust. But he was angry now, frustrated, his technique breaking down. He lunged with a killing thrust. Daniel stepped inside the attack. Everything Rasha had taught him crystallized into one moment. He trapped Grath's extended arm, rotated his hips, and drove his elbow into the commander's damaged shoulder with every ounce of strength he possessed. Grath screamed. The shoulder popped out of its socket, but the commander was too experienced to fall from one blow. He swung his blade with his good arm, a wild slash that caught Daniel across the chest. Blood sprayed. Daniel staggered back. The crowd roared. First blood to the Drachmary. The natural order restored. Daniel touched his wound. A shallow cut, painful but not fatal. He looked at Grath, who was trying to reset his shoulder while keeping his blade raised. Your knee, Daniel said. Grath's eyes widened. Daniel attacked. Not the elegant, powerful strikes of a Drachmary warrior. Short, fast movements. A healer's precision aimed at a healer's targets. He feinted high and struck low, his blade slashing across Grath's weak knee. The commander went down. Daniel kicked the blade from his hand. He placed his own blade at Grath's throat. The arena went silent. Yield, Daniel said. Grath stared up at him. His shoulder was useless. His knee was bleeding. He was beaten by a human. Kill me, he whispered. End it. No. You must. It is the tradition. The victor takes the life of the defeated. I'm not Drachmary. My traditions are different. Daniel pressed the blade just hard enough to draw a single drop of blood. Yield, commander. Admit defeat, or I will leave you here, alive and beaten for everyone to see. That was the cruelest cut of all. Death was honorable. Living with defeat, living with the knowledge that a human had beaten him, that was unbearable. I yield, Grath said, his voice barely audible. Daniel stepped back and lowered his blade. He turned to face the clan elders, the warriors, the hundreds of Drachmary who had come to watch him die. This fight was for Rasha of Clan Vorn's honor, he said. I have won. By your own traditions, the insult is answered. Her honor is restored. The elders conferred briefly. There was nothing they could do. The law was clear. The challenge is concluded, the head elder announced. The human is victorious. Rasha of Clan Vorn's honor is acknowledged. It was not a full restoration. It was not forgiveness, but it was something no one had expected. Recognition. Rasha walked across the arena floor to stand beside Daniel. Every warrior watched her. Every eye followed her movement. She was supposed to walk behind him. She was supposed to be property. She stood at his side instead. Equal, present, unbroken. We are leaving, she announced to the assembly, and we will not return. No one tried to stop them. They walked out of the arena together, through the great hall, through the stone corridors of her childhood, out into the harsh light of the Drachmarie sun. You are injured, Rasha said when they reached the ship. A scratch. It needs treatment. Later, Daniel stopped at the boarding ramp. Was it enough? What do you mean? The fight. The victory. Was it enough to give you what you needed? Rasha considered the question. She thought about the hall full of warriors who had watched her walk as an equal. She thought about Grath bleeding on the arena floor. She thought about the elders forced to acknowledge her honor. It was enough, she said. More than enough. They boarded the ship in silence. As the engines powered up, Rasha took the co-pilot's seat. Not behind Daniel. Beside him. You're not my husband, she said. No. You're my blade brother. The highest honor a Drachmarie can give. And you. Rasha allowed herself a real smile. I am your warrior. Earned. Not given. The ship rose from the surface and left Drachmarie space behind. Two broken soldiers, flying toward something neither had expected. Not love. Not yet. But something rarer. Trust forged in blood. Respect earned in fire. Partnership chosen freely by two people who had learned to see each other clearly. And that was enough.